So, Andre, there was this matter of piracy.
There was indeed, because we've been talking about awards and everything earlier today, and the irony is that the movies that are winning awards these days tend to be the movies that no one has really seen or care about, which may not be a good thing for the award shows in the long run. But then, of course, you have the matter of the movies that people actually care about. And in this day and age of streaming, someone who has made a comeback are the pirates. Not of the Caribbean, but of the, those other torrents, the ones that you Surfshark. Although neither we nor Surfshark condones any such thing. Of course, that don't mean you have to listen to it. But yeah, so Variety, they very helpfully they put a list over the most pirated films of the year 2022, which only goes to show that these then would be the most popular movies with pirates, which are quite a few people in the year 2022. That's going to be interesting to see exactly what that is.
Well, speaking of pirates, here's somebody with a pirate smile, Mr. Andy Masterson. How you doing, sir?
Hi, guys. Thanks for
I
having
got a
me.
package in the mail today, Andy.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about that in just a minute. I don't know if you two have ever actually met. Have you?
No, I've never been on with
So,
Andre.
Andy, this is Andre. Andre, this is Andy. Andy is the man, as you can see behind his shoulder there, who likes to do figures.
I know you by way of reputation. So,
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So we'll get back to that momentarily here, I have a feeling. But you just joined us now, Andy. We're about to go through the top pirated films of 2022. Arr. So let's go here through this. It looks like they have a some kind of chart.
Yes, they have a chart here. I don't know why they couldn't do it as a plain list, but apparently someone in Variety have just gone through an Excel course in how to make different kinds of charts. And so they decided, hey, I'm going to show that I'm really worth my salary here. So they decided to make it a tiny little bit more complex, which only goes to show that we will have to look and see at the number of percentages to see the most popular movies. Now let's begin.
I was going to say, I have one observation right up front, and I can see why the Batman 2 got its green light.
Yeah, but let's begin with the single most pirated movie of the year 2022.
To no one's surprise, which is also the biggest film of the year.
Yeah, but also it's a movie that's actually associated with the year 2021.
Oh, that's true. I was going to say it was the year before.
Yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, to be fair, it was released in theaters in 2021, but it wasn't available on streaming, meaning there was no 4K high-quality rip available for the pirates to torrent until the year 2022. So I guess this kind of like is the fair year to put it there. But that is number one. That is the most pirated movie of 2022. Is anyone surprised by that?
Not at all.
No, not at all. I mean, if Top Gun had come out sooner, I could see that being bigger. But yeah, and also like we see there, the Batman is the next in line. But I mean, that came out in what, March, wasn't it?
Yeah, that came out like 3-4 months later. And yeah, as you pointed out, Tom, that is number two, which I have to say, as someone that utterly despises that movie, I find very disappointing. That is,
I'm not surprised.
I don't mind that people opted to see it that way instead of actually shelling over hard-earned cash for it. But still, this does send the signal to Warner and to James Gunn and everything that there is interest in this, which
I'd call it more curiosity than interest, but yeah.
Yeah, which for my own selfish interests, I'm not too happy with. But as you pointed out, Tom, we don't know how many actually saw it beyond the first 5 minutes and decided to hell with it. That we don't know. We have no further.
Regardless, the reason I said that is because it looks like the reason I say is look at that in comparison to Doctor Strange and Thor, which outgrossed it in the theaters. That's why I bring it up, because that tells me, and this is what goes along with what I had heard from my source, and that is that the Batman was doing pretty good on streaming. And that's because people don't want to sit in a theater for 3 hours, but they are willing to give something a chance that's that long if it's, in their own home. So I'm not surprised it was one of the more pirated films of the year, to be honest with you.
Do you guys think pirating is increasing the more people have been disappointed with theatrical releases? They want
Yes.
Absolutely. Not only that, it increases with the number of streaming services and the number of high quality, desirable content on different streaming services. That's also going to increase piracy.
Added
If
to
it
the
had all
quality
been
of,
on one standard, like Netflix, wouldn't have been any piracy. But since they're
right.
competing against each other, they have a video coming about it. This is all driving piracy up, up, up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because, like the other problem you have is, like you said, Andre, they're everywhere. So, and not only that, a lot of these movies are getting earlier and earlier releases, so they're getting good versions. That's the other thing, because a lot of people, they'll just either rather just pay the the $10 to go see it in a theater than watch some blurry cam copy online, right? But at this point, 2-3 weeks to a month after a movie comes out, sometimes day and date, why the hell would you?
And it's, as you said, Tom, it's a matter of quality as well. Because here's like the thing: you can now get very often, day and date, a 4K rip of the movie, or a file that is
In the very list,
literally
2K. Yeah.
in every way superior to the actual Blu-ray disc. Well, of course, that's big freaking file. I mean, then you have to download like a 40 gig file or something. But you do that, you have a file that is in every single way better than a regular 1080p Blu-ray.
I mean, in some cases, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I would say this: in some cases, it's probably
It's
better
not
than what
better
you're
than
going
a
to get.
4K disc. Get me
Well,
wrong.
I was going to say it's probably better than the experience you're going to get in most theaters in some cases. That's for sure.
That too.
Considering how they run those situations sometimes, but the ones that surprised me, Eternals, getting 8%. Like, who the fuck wanted to watch that?
No. I'm not surprised by that at all. I think there's a very natural explanation for that. I mean, this is a movie that people decided not to see in theaters, so it's not good enough that they're going to invest their money in actually seeing it. But completionists, when it's available on Disney Plus, meaning there's a good 4K rip out there, can be like, the hell, I'll check it out a little bit at the very least. We don't see how many people finished watching it, but I'm not surprised.
No. And I get what you're saying. If it was 2021, yeah, because it came out at the end of 2021, near the end, not like at the end, but there's a couple months there padding. And the reason I bring it up is because, like Double Back again pointed out, no Dune, that came out pretty late in the year, didn't it? Wasn't that when did that come out in 2021? Trying to remember, because Kong was March.
That came out relatively late, and this is actually a bad sign for Dune, because this is something. Of course, you can do like the interpretation that a shit ton of people already saw it on HBO Max, but I would
you can say the same thing about Encanto or Eternals for that matter.
You can't say the same thing about that. So this is actually a bad sign for Dune that it's not on here. That's a bad sign for Dune 2 and the level of interest. Like maybe it's in top 11, but really, just as a gauge of interest, I would have liked to see Dune on this list.
Yeah. Black Adam surprisingly popped in there pretty high, but I mean, fairly new film.
And that's
at the end of the year.
That's a movie that came in at the very tail end of the year.
October,
I would not have expected that to be here so high just for that, because it had literally 6 weeks competing against movies that had been out all year, and it beats many of them. I'm not too surprised that it beat out Top Gun Maverick, because again, so many people saw that in theaters, and the audience who went to see that in theaters isn't necessarily the same audience who
That's a good point.
Surfshark it. But Black Adam, this is a movie that I would expect many to check out there on the high seas, and it's actually higher than I would have expected.
Yeah, it's right on line with Thor. So that shows you, actually, that's the thing that's funny too, is it shows you how much I mean, really, if you think about it, because Thor had a couple months jump on it. So did Doctor Strange.
It had 6 months jump on it.
Yeah, easy. And looking at the number here, it's like maybe, again, I don't agree with how they handled this Warner thing. But if I was Warner and I was looking at this right now, I would be like going, maybe we jumped the gun a bit too much on this James Gunn business on resetting everything.
They may. Like, remember what I said about Black Adam? That movie
there was interest for it.
It did no harm to the brand at all. On the contrary, that was a movie that I think would build and build and build, and a sequel to that could be massive. I don't know that rebooting was the right choice, and that this movie is so high on this list with. And not only that, that was a movie. Yeah, it came out in theaters. It came out in theaters 6 weeks before.
The digital didn't come out until right near the end of the year, right?
Exactly. It was like, so this is one that in the last couple of weeks of the year would have gotten all that way up to the charts. I think I stand by that they did a mistake in rebooting. They should just freaking carried on.
Well, maybe The Rock was a little bit right in his assessment, even though he was somewhat cooking the books and all the bullshit he was pulling behind the scenes. But because that's what I was going to say is, I keep pointing out, I have not still met anybody who has seen Avatar in my personal life. Online, different story. My personal life, still haven't met anybody. Another thing I've noticed, still haven't seen it trending, but boy, was Black Adam and Henry Cavill and all that shit trending like a motherfucker when that movie came out, regardless of how the box office reflected it. So there was something going on with that movie. So again, clearly there is some interest there. And believe you me, the studios do pay attention to this shit. They do pay attention to the most bootlegged things. Like HBO knew for years that Game of Thrones was the most bootleg or pirated thing on.
They pride in it.
Yeah. They would still nail your ass, but they took pride in it.
But yeah, they didn't approve of it, but still, it was like they wore it like a medal.
I remember when I first came into the fold here, Andre, one of the people I talked to early on had said that, and I remember we were discussing this way back when, you may remember the conversation, where they had said flat out that they pay attention to those charts. And even if a film doesn't do so well in theaters or a show doesn't do so well on streaming or on TV, they do pay attention, because a lot of that they were paying attention to before streaming was a thing.
I can give you one example of this from 2011. Conan the Barbarian, the reboot. Now that movie...
Dread is another one too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the Conan, because we had this straight from Fredrik Malmberg himself. He acknowledged that movie, that had huge problems. It wasn't the movie that he wanted to make. The audience rejected it wholesale in theaters. But still, from the streaming numbers, they could say there is interest and curiosity in the character. There was loads of people that didn't go see the movie due to poor word of mouth and bad marketing and everything like that. But so many more people than you would have expected checked it out there on the high seas, which just indicates there's interest here, which they took with them moving on.
Yeah, and I brought up Dread, one of your favorites, because that was specifically the whole reason they even thought about doing a sequel, is because not just because the video sales were doing well, but because of how much it was pirated. But I mean, in the end of the day, that's what killed that movie, and that's what got in the way of it. It was like a curse and it showed the studio there was interest, but yeah, it was a blessing and a curse at the same time. They said, okay, we've got interest in this, but do we chance doing this again because of how much money we lost the first time on the pirating of the film?
And also, it was the distribution of the matter, because what really
screwed
that movie was the distribution situation. That, more than anything, is what killed it.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong. Like, I mean, again, I don't want to go down that whole rabbit hole,
but if it had been one company to deal with, we would have gotten a Dread 2.
I hear you. Wasn't. But and surprisingly, though, some of these are not surprising. Like Uncharted, I'm a bit surprised on, considering how bad that flopped. But movies like Encanto, not surprised at all, obviously. I'm surprised that Jurassic World isn't a little bit bigger, per se, but meh. I mean, that's the thing, is a lot of these films this year also had early on video on demand releases as well, Andre. I mean, do you think that helped or hurt their I think it hurt, but then again, there could be more to it than we're seeing here on screen, because they keep doing it more consistently now. So maybe they did see a downturn in piracy when they started releasing them video on demand earlier.
Yeah, maybe. Still, there are some very, very interesting things to read out from this.
I
What
guess
stands
there's a
out to
better
me,
chart
though,
down the book.
yeah,
Oops, sorry, go ahead.
is the DC thing, and these numbers are really, really good for Black Adam. Let's not deny it.
Well, they were nice enough to put this in here. This is days between theatrical release and video on demand streaming. So you see the most, and that might be one of the reasons also why Top Gun suffered, because it had the most days in between when it actually got a digital release.
It was in theaters forever. I mean, they
Forever,
extended the
yeah.
run for that because it just kept on performing. So and that, of course, with so many people seeing it, that also is going to drive the piracy numbers down. So plenty of reason why that isn't higher. And for that movie in isolation, it's probably good that those numbers aren't higher.
Yeah.
I think it's also a movie that did really well because it was on such a big screen.
Yeah.
It was a very big movie.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, it was, as Andre was saying earlier, not only is this, it got out the crowd that don't normally know how to or want to pirate movies. And that's the other reason why I said it did so well, is because, you know, people who normally don't go to see films went to see Top Gun, right? Your mom and your dad and your grandma and your grandpa all went out to see it too, on top of everybody else, you know. So that's what made that movie so big. But yeah, I can't wait to hear your editorial on this, Andre. So